My grandfather used to live during the week in Manhattan on the Lower East Side. The address was 55 FDR Drive. You might remember that as the same building where Vayeshev Feinstein used to live, one floor above. My grandfather would leave early in the morning from 455 FDR Drive and walk a few blocks to the Bialystoker Shul. One Monday, as he's walking out of his apartment, he sees approaching him an odd couple. He sees two people walking hand in hand. There is a man who's middle-aged, tall, strapping, well-dressed, and he's clutching the arm of what appears to be his mother in her 80s, stooped over, shuffling along. My grandfather is impressed with the midos of this son that gets up early in the morning to walk his mother, who presumably can't sleep as well as she did when she was younger. And so even though it's Manhattan and people don't always greet each other, my grandfather decides he's going to give them his heartiest greeting that he can muster. And as they pass by, he says, "Good morning." And the old mother turns and says, "Good morning," with a smile. And the son ignores him, no response. That seems strange. Here's this well-mannered son, and he's ignoring me. Next day, same thing. My grandfather gets out of the apartment. He's on his way to the shul. He sees these people walking, the same pair, and he thinks, well, maybe yesterday I didn't say it loud enough, so even louder he says, "Good morning." Same unusual response. The mother turns, says, "Good morning," with a smile, and the son ignores him. The third day, my grandfather is a little bit delayed, and he's about 10 minutes later than he normally is, and he leaves his apartment, and he sees that the pair, the son and the mother, have already passed him, and they're at the corner waiting for a bus stop. He watches. He's curious. And he sees a bus pull up, but not an ordinary bus, but an Access a Ride vehicle for people who need extra assistance. He sees two people come out from the front of the Access a Ride bus, and they take the son by his arms and lead him up into the van, drive away. My grandfather goes over to the elderly mother and says, "Excuse me, ma'am, I'm sorry to pry, but is everything okay? What's the matter with your son?" And she said, "Oh, my Johnny's a good boy. Blind and deaf since birth, but a really good boy." All this time, he had been sure that it was the son walking the mother, and it was really the mother walking the son. How often do we jump to conclusions? We make judgments based on a first impression, who people are. And that can lead to all sorts of miscommunication, misunderstanding, and strife between people. The Sfas Emes explains that is the core of what went wrong in this week's parsha between Yosef and his brothers. The second pasuk in the parsha describes Yosef, "V'hu nar es b'nei Bilha." He was a nar, he was a boy. Now, nar is the opposite of the word zaken. Nar is a youngster, zaken is an elder. But deeper, the word nar means, Sfas Emes explains, from the shoresh of the word er, awake. Because a child needs always to be awakened, to be stimulated, to be motivated, incentivized. Last night we had Ava Subanim, gave out over 40 prizes because the children need a shiny object to incentivize them. And that creates a bit of vulnerability, because if there's a shiny object that's shown in a different direction, a direction where they shouldn't be going, they might follow it there too, because that's who they are. They're a nar. As opposed to a zaken. Zeh shekana chachma. It means a person who has acquired chachma, where the wisdom has become a part of who he is, so that it's ingrained, it's habitual. It doesn't require constant stimulation, nacha, incentive. They're going to do that because that's what's right. Their convictions are clear. Yosef v'hunares b'nei Bilha, when he was with the b'nei Bilha, he acted like a boy, childish, boyish games, ring around the rosy, hide and seek, like them. And so therefore the brothers didn't respect him because they judged him based on the surface, and on the surface Yosef was a boy, was a child, looked and acted like a little boy. So they laughed at his dreams of leading them. He's just a boy. But Yaakov saw something different. The very next pasuk, the third pasuk in the parsha, V'Yisrael ohav es Yosef, Yaakov loved Yosef. Why? Ki ven zekunim hulai, because he was his ben zekunim. Now what is ben zekunim? Usually it's translated as the son of the father's old age. Well, if that's what it means, I have a question for you. Yosef's not the ben zekunim, Binyamin is. Binyamin's the youngest one. Binyamin's the son of Yaakov's old age, not Yosef. Zaktus vasemes, do you know what ben zekunim means? Not that Yosef was the son of Yaakov's old age. That Yosef himself, Ben Zekunim, was a son who was an elder, lo to Yaakov. Yaakov saw past the exterior, the boyish exterior of Yosef, into his core. And he was an elder. He was a Zeh Shekana. He was someone with the clear convictions and confidence and closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that nothing could shake him. And it seems to me this is why Yosef was the perfect target for Eshes Potiphar, because she sees the boyish good looks. She sees someone who's fickle, who's running after shiny objects like a nar, looking for stimulation here and there. And she says, well, I'll throw myself in front of him. Won't he run after me? But Vayima'ain, he refused. He didn't waver, because deep down he was that zakein inside. Avrech, the pasuk says in Parshas Miketz, when Yosef ascended to greatness in Mitzrayim, Vayikru lefanav Avrech, they called him an Avrech because he was an Av b'chachma, he was a father in wisdom, Rach b'shanim, but tender in years. That's Yosef, that dichotomy, this contradiction. And it seems that is why Yosef's greatness comes out through dreams. Dreams are something that has nothing to do with the exterior of a person. It's the core. When you dream, it's your subconscious. And Yosef has these dreams of greatness, of leadership. He's able to understand the dreams of the Sarah Mashkim and the Sarah Ophim at the end of the parasha, because Yosef's core is sophisticated and mature and wise, well beyond his years. Yaakov's able to recognize that because Yaakov has gone through this himself. He saw Yitzchak be deceived by the exterior of Esav. It's why Yaakov himself dressed up as Esav, to show Yitzchak, according to Rav Hirsch, how easily he could be deceived. So Yaakov doesn't make the same mistake. And he looks past the boyish exterior to the core of Yosef. And he sees Ben Zekunim. And it could also be, perhaps this is why the Navi we learned in the Haftarah tells us that the Esrim Kesef, the 20 silver the 20 silver pieces, the pasuk seems to suggest, was the purchase price that the Yishmaelim paid for Yosef. It wasn't paid in cash. The Navi tells us it was ba'avur na'aloyim, it was for shoes, because shoes, it was a signal to the Shvatim to say, this was your mistake. You looked at the shoe, not at the foot. You got focused on the exterior, on the guf, not at the neshama, on the beged, on the exterior, but not at the core. And the sponsor of the Kiddush today, he's someone who doesn't do this with people. He doesn't make judgments like that about the first glance. How often do we do this? Our minds, they're like radar. They're constantly making judgments within milliseconds. We make an assessment about a person. It's very hard to undo based on how they speak, their yarmulke color, how they dress, how they pronounce these words. And it's really important we learn from the mistakes of the brothers not to fall into that trap of jumping to conclusions, of judging someone based on that first impression. You think he's ignoring you? Maybe he can't see you. You think it's the son walking the mother? Maybe it's the mother walking the son. Take that time to get to know each other, deep down, who we really are. And when our core connects with the core of the people around us, and we're not blinded by the chitzonius, then we're going to have achdus, and that will preclude the need for this gullus. The gullus was precipitated by this focus on the chitzonius, on the surface of people, and judging them and dismissing them. Let's undo that, and that will bring the geula shleima. Amen.